Increased time in the temple will help us prepare for the second coming of our Savior, Jesus Christ. We do not know the day or the hour of his coming.
Travis Wayne Goodsell. This video is an Armageddon strategy session mingled with Trump Bias 2025 because it's all tied together. Christians believe in a not real Jesus. Homoousion means by definition not real because it's a created word, does not exist in Greek. It's just using Greek letters combined together to explain the nature and character of the creation of Jesus with the creation of Christianity, creatio ex nihilo, 1700 years ago, this August. As there's a new pope to celebrate it, will he? Will he? He'd have to admit that the first creed of Christianity was when Christianity was founded, but, you know, Nelson was able to bypass the true history of the Church of Joseph Smith, skipped the whole bicentennial of the second vision, the whole year skipped it. I told you in advance, pay attention, he's going to skip it. And every single day, the whole year, I talk about it. And there was some fun stuff that happened. But nonetheless, Christians, because Jesus isn't real, have to create interpretation of Scripture based upon the first creed of Christianity. And so, in the first creed of Christianity, Jesus is being given a second chance after failing in the Roman period time, where the Jews got utterly destroyed, precisely as it stands in our New Testament. You should pay attention to that, Mormons. Joseph Smith likewise said precisely as it stands in our New Testament for you. Nonetheless, Jesus gets a second chance, and no man knows the day or the hour of when he's coming, and so he may not even be coming anytime soon. It could be another 1700 years from now. We don't know. Nobody knows. Just could go on for millennia. Multiple millennia. And so Christians are still, waiting for Jesus. And yet, there is a push since Trump by evangelicals to make all of the conditions for the coming of Jesus. Even calling Trump the comparable to King Cyrus of Persia, who gave the announcement to the Jews that they can return to Jerusalem and rebuild their destroyed temple by Babylon. And so you got Christians, evangelicals specifically, who believe Trump is the representative of Jesus, to do the will of Jesus as an imperfect being. They have to create it. They're bringing to pass the latter days, Armageddon, and there's Zion. And so they're taking away everybody's agency, destroying the Constitution to make it evangelical with their kingdom under King Trump. Mormons don't seem to get a clue on this. They don't understand this concept by evangelical Christians, even though the church under Heber J. Grant and re-emphasized by Holland having besties with an evangelical, that the church is a version of evangelical Christianity. It's just that they still maintain the perception that our Jesus is non-Trinitarian rather than Trinitarian. And so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' interpretation of the Bible, and thus of the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, is a revision interpretation of Christian interpretation of Jewish authors who had the one and true, one correct interpretation, because they were the authors, Jews. So the Jews don't have to create an interpretation of their own prophecies. It's pretty plain, pure, and most precious what they mean when you use the correct interpretation. So the Jews don't have to force it to happen. It either happens or the prophets are wrong. It's that simple. And so for Christianity and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they have to make their own reinterpretation true. Kind of hard to do, especially when Jesus is a no-show. But Mormons put themselves in a more precarious situation because of non-Trinitarian Jesus. He's half not real, but he's half real. And the half real is from space alien Heavenly Father from Kolob, who has sex with his 14-year-old daughter to produce rape baby Jesus, who there's no explanation for this, and the prophets send your questions to your state president for disciplinary action. If you dare challenge them, question them, ask questions, so that you will never know why or how Heavenly Father is the seed descendant of King David in order for Jesus to likewise be the seed descendant from King David. And we're just supposed to just not know about sex ed and just assume, well, Mary, she's egg, not seed. You're not supposed to know sex ed to ask those kinds of questions. Shh. Just pay your tithing and shut up. Church is true. Just accept it. And so yes, I've gone over with you the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints under Oaks, plus the Danite plot for 200 years now to make their interpretation come true. That Thomas B. Marsh exposed in his affidavit to Governor Lilburn or Wilburn Boggs of Missouri. Gotta pronounce it Missouri. It's the show me state. Don't show them the spelling. It's Missouri. Don't show the I. It's And so, yes, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is making their interpretation of Armageddon come to pass. Oaks got leaked by a little sister missionary because the mission president leaked it, in which Oaks confesses, we are running a test in 2020 for the second coming of Jesus. What? I thought Jesus is just going to show. What do you have to run a test for? Because you're making it happen. That's what he means. Mormons can't create another interpretation of the living prophets of Jesus. They tell you not to. You are an apostate if you come up with any other interpretation than what they tell you based upon their reinterpretation. And so this is why we're doing a Trump Ice 2025 video series for you all this year, until Trump finally gets it. But this is the whole thing, is that this is what Nelson has been meaning the whole time when he says that Jesus' second coming is in the coming days, in the coming day, in the coming days, in the coming day. And then April, I don't know the day or the hour now. He would not say in the coming days to keep it going. And it means he knows that a month after October conference, when he said in the coming day, Jesus' second coming, that Mormons finally, having come back from vacation, smearing poop on the Capitol walls, learned, as it spread all over the internet, that Nelson had said that at conference. You didn't watch my video on it. You'd rather watch Oaks. God, that's the thing about not believing, is you miss important information. Just like this video. If you're not going to watch this video, you're going to miss important information. And you're going to keep waiting for Jesus, and you won't make the connection between what Trump is doing and that the church is behind it all. Everybody does not know this around the whole world, that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is behind everything that's happening. And the whole world perceives others to blame. The church is getting away with it when the church is behind it all. This is the great danger. And so the church got involved with a secret combination in 1981 when Reagan became president. And so everything that has been done since then has been because of this group, this secret combination of America, led by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which the church had the guy who created the Left Behind movie series was the one who takes the fall for it as the CEO of the secret combination. The church had Cleon Skousen as their representative in that group to have the will of the church be done, to distance and separate the church from affiliation in case they ever got leaked of their membership record. And so yes, when it did get leaked, nobody knew who Mark Skousen was. Nobody knew Kleonskausen in memorial. It was the 2014 one, Kleonskausen being dead already, and handing it over to the birthright blessing son, Mark. That's why Mark isn't doing anything else in the church, is because he's in that secret combination for the church, to do the will of the church. And so Royal Skousen was assigned to try to protect the church with the coming out of the Joseph Smith papers as best as possible. Paid for by money laundering from Gail Miller. And her concentration camps of human trafficking with no resources. And so everything, you need to go back in history from 1981 forward as to what's happened in the United States of America and around the world. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is behind it all. They have Russians in this group, evangelicals, medical doctors who are violating their Hippocratic oath. They have psychologists. They have all these other CEOs and group leaders, Heritage Foundation, Project 2025 people. All of them have been in this group, among others. And that's why I've told you that those in that group that make the news, you need to pay attention to, because they're involved in the overthrow of the government, not just the United States, but worldwide. That's why Steve Bannon was interviewed by the Daily Beast in 2016, as he was helping Trump at the beginning, before Trump had Stephen Miller join. And Steve Bannon said, "I'm a Leninist. I want to see everything burned to the ground." You need to pay attention to that. He's involved in the secret combination to overthrow the government, burn everything to the ground. That's why he's in the membership group, the secret combination. And so after destroying our first election in 2016, he then went on to Europe to destroy Europe. He's the cause for Brexit. Cambridge Analytica and Facebook advertising from the data stolen from which Disney princess are you? Which is all based on psychology. And so yes, I've been trying to tell you all this all these latter days, exposing all of what the church is up to. And yeah, Mormons don't believe. They are waiting for Jesus. They have not run the test to know that the fig tree has no figs. It ain't going to grow figs. It has to be destroyed. Move on. Find a better seed that will produce fruit. Mormons won't do it. They keep their fig tree without figs. As season after season, no figs. When it was supposed to have figs. Mormons are not smart enough. The church purposely made you stupid to not understand your scriptures, to have you create your own interpretation of their created interpretation that you're not supposed to create another interpretation of, because they're setting a trap for you. And it's part of the purge with the separation of the wheat and the tares that is talked about in the scriptures, as well as the 10 virgins, because you have 10 virgins, 5 of whom are wise because they have reserve oil, 5 of which are foolish, like in the statue that was put up before conference on Temple Square. They only had their lamp. They didn't have the reserve oil. Those are the 5 foolish virgins. Very simple, and yet the sculptor botched the scripture. He's so focused on making it perfect that it was not perfect. And this has been the problem with Christianity, is that you get sculptors and painters who recreate biblical stories, and they're wrong. There are details missing or replaced with something else. You know, the apple for the fall of Eve, not Adam. And so you get other scholars who come around and laugh. No, it was more likely a pomegranate. Or you get people who say that Jesus wasn't a white guy. That's white oppression of the rich elite who are for a white Jesus upon the people. He was black. And then you get other scholars who say, well, he was more Mediterranean colored and olive skin. You're still basing it on the reinterpretation of Christianity. It's all wrong. It's just hilarious when you're the expert in the field listening to these dumbasses who have PhDs. And so, Joseph Smith not only adds in the Joseph Smith translation to this that it's supposed to read, and then at that day, before the Son of Man comes, the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. This assumes that Mormons know the day and the hour of when he's coming, when the latter days are, and Mormons didn't. 23rd September 2017 came and went, and Mormons didn't know that it came and went, even though 40,000 people saw my video in advance. Mormons didn't believe. Where are they now? And so the footnote to Doctrine and Covenants, section 45, at verse 56, we get a better understanding of the coming of the Son of Man. It's not 23rd September 2017, it's actually April 2024. And at that day, when I shall come in my glory, shall the parable be fulfilled which I spake concerning the 10 virgins. For they that are wise, and obviously he's talking to Mormons because you read this from the beginning. He says, I'm talking to you Mormons, I'm going to render a prophecy in the manner of the Bible authors who were Jewish, predicting the future of the coming of the Christ, who is going to be a Mormon, because you are the children of Israel, and out of you will come a Mormon who will be your Christ. Very plain, pure, and most precious to understand. And so when you read Jews, it's Mormons. When it's Jesus, it's the Mormon. Simple. No extra interpretation to look beyond the mark needed. And yet, for Mormons who are wise have received the truth, which means you didn't interpret it wrong, and have taken the Holy Spirit for their guide, and have not been deceived by false interpretations of false prophets of a false Christ. Verily I say unto you, they shall not be hewn down and cast into the fire, but shall abide the day. and the earth shall be given unto Mormons for an inheritance. See, the church is forcing this interpretation by buying up land for temples. Every Monday, the church comes out with their temple updates. And so we had a couple of prophets of the living Jesus dedicating temples. And other news of where other temples stand in their being created. This is what they're doing. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has made it very clear they will not be gathering Mormons to Zion. They aren't even going to have the missionaries be called home because of the war and bloodshed around the world. Nelson was forced to do it in 2020 during the test run. He didn't want to do it. There are consequences. If you're going to be a dumbass and not plan everything perfectly, and so yeah, Heber C. Kimball, attest. I've done that several times because that has bearing. Heber C. Kimball is the enemy. You just have to read his Masonic involvement from his Wikipedia page to know he is the enemy. He knew about the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith Sr., and yet, for those of you who don't watch and listen to my channel, you get deceived. Because you have no clue that he's talking about Joseph Smith Sr. He's talking about the Book of Mormon. He's talking about Joseph Smith. And you don't see it because he doesn't say the names. You don't see it. And in his lies reveals the truth. And so Joseph Smith further explains about the need to listen to the Jewish Christ, who is a Mormon, and getting to Zion to be gathered, rather than having missionaries converting people around the world and staying where they are and building up the church where they are. That is the church's reinterpretation of having the earth be given unto the church for an inheritance. This is the difference between this church and Joseph's intention. Because this church is buying up the land around the world by putting up churches and temples and other church-owned property. So that when Trump finally drops the bomb, the church will say, we own the land. We are the only government around. All other governments have fallen. We now rule you. We stole all the money. And so if you don't join us, then you die. Bringing back blood atonement. Tongue twister. Whereas Joseph Smith said, it shall come to pass among the wicked, which are on the earth, that every man that will not take his sword against his neighbor must needs flee unto Zion for safety. Yeah, that's not a spiritual thing about your local church wherever you are in the world. That's one and only one location for a big main gathering of the scattered Mormons from around the world to be gathered to this one place. And Nelson says, no, you are staying where you are. If you die, you are collateral damage. Headquarters of the church is only for the leadership. And this is going to be disappointing for Mormons who have to stay where they are around the world. Mormons want to come to Zion. My mom, for example, growing up, she didn't want us raised up in Utah. But after we were all kicked out of the home, and Elder Irene at the time, in the 70s, had come down to Southern California, where my parents were invited to the banquet. My mom sat right next to Irene at that banquet. She knew he was in the 70s to scout for land for new temples. And so she, being who she was, took the opportunity to ask him, because she's thinking about moving to a place that has a temple so that she can do genealogy, and wanted to know where he's planning on having a temple built so that she can plan and tell my dad where to move. He, not understanding my mom and what she's thinking, because women never seem to tell a man what they're thinking. They don't communicate. They expect a man to just understand what they mean in their mind. And we never do we, women? And then you get upset with us. Why can't you figure out what we mean? It's very obvious. No, it isn't. You asked us a question, we answered it. What do you mean you had ulterior motives? What do you mean you were testing us? Stop it. Ask us what you want. Nope. And so Irene went on a big spiel about how there are Mormons around the world who have to sell their last chicken to travel to the temple to go one time and buy one pair of underwear, barefoot, pregnant, in the snow, going uphill both ways. And so my mom, upset with that answer, was saying in her head, so no, your answer is no. And a couple of weeks later, a new temple was announced in Bountiful, just down the block from Irene. Hilarious. Oh my God. And so yes, after my dad's failed business with the San Diego temple, he had a business there at the Temple Square of San Diego. They decided to move to Utah to retire, as they so supposed, because lots of temples within driving distance. And that's why they moved to Utah then. Kids are gone, except for Tabitha. And so she was the only one that had to grow up in the final years in high school here in Utah. The rest of us are SoCal, Southern Cal. I don't think we didn't use SoCal. That's that singer person. What does he know? Those in Southern California called it Southern Cal. because we're not Northern Cal. Even though I was born in Northern Cal, so all of California is mine. Other people are not like me, but nonetheless. And so Mormons want to be near the prophets. They want to be at the headquarters of the church, especially when, life gets scary. People are warring around you, things are getting destroyed, economies are gone, you're fighting for survival. Mormons are going to want to come to Utah, and the church is going to say, no, we need you where you are, because when it all ends, we need you there as our representatives, like Mark Skousen in the Secret Combination, to represent us when we rule over them. That's why we are everywhere around the world, even in China, even in Russia. I warned you guys, you're not listening to me. And North Korea, no, we do not have Mormons in North Korea. That is the final holdout. That is the one and last one of the holdouts. Everywhere else. Middle East, yeah, we're in the Middle East. Everywhere. But not in North Korea. The final holdout of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it won't matter, because we have South Korea. When North Korea falls, we're in South Korea. And so, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. But everywhere else, the church has put us into position around the world for when Armageddon hits. But Joseph Smith made it very clear, we need to protect you from getting murdered, from dying as a casualty of war. We need to save you so that you don't die, that you get to Zion, which will be the only place on the face of the earth not at war. And as everybody else kills each other off until the final Coriantumr and Shiz, we are safe in Zion. And then when all human race is exterminated, we then populate and refill the earth again. Just like creation, just like Noah's flood. Which likewise is for the latter days. As in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the latter days. That's what it means. This is the correct interpretation. This is Joseph's interpretation. But the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says, no, we are going to force our interpretation. And it's that Danite interpretation that they told to Thomas B. Marsh. And so this is important to know what is going on around the world, to know what Trump is up to. Because we can see that the church works through Mark Skousen, through the Secret Combination, to get things done. The church surprised me with the Respect for Marriage Act turned into the Disrespect for Marriage Act. The church was put on the forefront. But again, they still tried to pretend that they weren't a part of that. Because it was Mitt Romney who used the church's exemption clause that they've already been using in Utah, and they tested it in Arizona, got it passed there in their legislature, and we're trying in other places to get it pushed. And so with this federal bill, it wasn't going to be passed. And so Mitt Romney, ordered by the church, use our exemption clause. And so he was able to get Sinema and some others to agree, oh, okay, yeah, an exemption clause. So we don't have to allow respect for marriage if it violates our religious beliefs. And so the needed number of GOP senators, MAGA senators, agreed, and it was passed. And the church then comes out, we approve. The church approves of respect for marriage. No, they approve the exemption clause. Dumbass news reporters. Well, people don't get it. The distance is sufficiently enough that nobody makes the connection to the church being responsible for what's going on in America and around the world. The church is getting away with it. The church is responsible for Putin and the war against Ukraine. The church is responsible for funding terrorism that is attacking Israel. The church is behind everything. And so I've been following the church news and been telling you, everywhere the church goes, a coup follows. Not just the Congo and South Korea, Japan. Oh my God. What the hell? But yeah, I mean, those boys are now being tried here in Utah. The church got them to have it sent here to America to be tried in the American federal courts. God, unbelievable. And so yeah, we're not hearing anything more about that lately. God. So it's just going to be swept under the rug, and I'll be given a slap on the wrist, and Trump will pardon them if necessary. Just like he did to the other Mormon. And other Mormons, too. January 6 Mormons. So yeah, that's what Oaks meant. They were behind January 6th. They are behind Project 2025 that Trump is implementing. And I've tried to warn Trump that the church is using him through the secret committee, secret combination. That once Trump destroys the federal government, transfers authority to the individual states, as Trump believes he will still remain king over the new MAGA nation, run by the individual states themselves, who are all MAGA. Deep state Dems are completely destroyed from off the face of the earth, and Trump will have to create a new enemy to attack as we enter into 1984 territory. Trump will think he's Big Brother, but he doesn't realize that that's when the church will have him assassinated like Lincoln, as they planned to do to Joseph Smith and ended up doing it with Carthage jail, because they were able to successfully get Joseph Smith locked up for terrorism with their plot and the destruction of the Nauvoo print press, or the Nauvoo Expositor. They framed him on that, and that was their opportunity to finally murder him, rather than trying to see if he could win the presidential election and then murder him while he was president, and then have Brigham Young and his Council of 50 go to Sidney Rigdon, who's the vice president, made president at the assassination of Joseph, and convince Sidney Rigdon to establish martial law under Brigham Young, and civil war that way. But didn't happen, and the South then took over that responsibility. There's so much in American history that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been getting away with, that people don't know their involvement in. And it pisses me off that they're getting away with this. that I can't get through to my government that they're going to assassinate Trump, that I can't get through to my government that they're a criminal organization seeking to overthrow the government. Because Trump is overthrowing the government. And so he doesn't see how he's being framed and set up. Trump is in the press as the fall guy. Trump is the one making all the decisions. But those decisions are from the Project 2025, which came from Oaks, specifically from the church. That's why Senator Lee put in the bill to ban all porn. There is no such thing. It is a religious creation of evangelicals that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints supports. And so I don't get why nobody can catch on to this. Art is any medium used to represent life, reality, and existence. That is art. And as such, a woman's body is art. It is a medium that represents existence, reality, and life. And so, in and of itself, a woman's body can't be porn as redefined, translated from evangelical Christians, after failing to force everybody in America to have their version of creationism taught in the public school systems. And that's why you see a push for the 10 Commandments with Christian interpretation in our public school systems. This is what they're pushing for. They are forcing their religion upon others. As the church supports this, but is not evangelical, and therefore is distancing themselves from what's actually going on when the church is behind it all. And and so anything in the Constitution, the arts are supposed to be protected, education is supposed to be protected, as well as the sciences. And thus, porn, as we all know it, falls under all three of those categories. It is art, it is sex ed, it is science of biology and human anatomy. And yet, everybody keeps trying to claim that it's an evil, awful, harmful thing upon mankind. These are the ways in which the church is destroying the Constitution of the United States of America. Religious freedom, they're pushing for the religious freedom movement. You've already got religious freedom in the First Amendment. You don't need more. Their push for this religious freedom thing with the exemption clause is to disregard the law under the basis that it violates their religion. And they don't get it. They're overthrowing the Constitution. And you see this in both the deep state Dems and MAGA overthrowing the Constitution in their own special way. You have the deep state Dems who got psychologists into all of the public school systems across America during the 80s. And so in the 90s, they then struck and began telling the schools that they need to back off on the kids. Kids are getting stressed from taking tests, and so they need emotional support animals during class time. And it needs to be a participation. It can't be a grading system, because, you know, kids get stressed when they get a B. And you've got all these little kids who are going in and talking about their stresses to the psychologist, who can't tell anybody because it's client confidentiality. And these psychologists are telling these kids, well, it's because you're gay. It's because you're a lesbian. It's because you're trans. And that began as Bill Maher did a new rules last year or 2 years ago, in which he said that we're all going to be LGBTQ within a couple of years. Going over the chart of where people stood in their identity, it was a fetish. And it was actually transitioning. It was a fantasy at first. You know, what is your fantasy, girl? To what is your fetish? And then type was at the beginning of the 90s. And then psychologists turned it into an identity. And oh God, don't even get me started. And I'm horrified at how people are easily being brainwashed by psychology, as it's spread all over the United States now, and especially in Utah, as we're seeing the consequences of all the sexual abuse and the lawsuits and the imprisonment of psychologists here just in the state of Utah alone, let alone the rest of the United States. But that's the secret combination group led by the Church of Jesus Christ. You know, they're the ones that were doing conversion therapy. They were the ones victim blaming rape victims at BYU, and then trafficking the babies that they were forcing the rape victims to have. That's why the whole sex ed thing has just been crushing Americans, not just Mormons. The abuse, the sexual abuse by the prophets from miseducation on sex ed is just crushing Mormons. And Mormons are not knowing that it's the church to blame for it, because they blame themselves. The BYU starting quarterback, yeah, nobody knows what happened on that. They just assume that he wasn't able to turn it off, and that, you know, he oopsied, and now the BYU won't be the number one team this year. God's school is going to fail. And nobody knows the mindset of Mormon girls. I do. It happened to me from the first one. Second one even was similar, but not the same. But nonetheless, you know, she lied and forced me into a situation, getting the bishop to force me into a false dichotomy, because we didn't have sex. And yet, everybody's assuming we had sex at our wedding reception. Even my sister comes to me and says, yeah, I had sex. Here's the guy I had sex with. I didn't have sex. But I can't tell anybody because she framed me to force the marriage. Whereas the starting quarterback, you know, he rejected her, I guess. And so she got revenge and claimed rape. I see how that can happen. You know, I see with P. Diddy how that can happen. The women are not associated with his baby oil orgies. And yet, that's just all messed up. But nonetheless, he's not there for the other things that are going on. He's there for the rape accusation. And so when you get women who are with a famous guy and they want a marriage, and he doesn't want a marriage because he's popular and he can have any woman he wants whenever he wants it, you know, yeah, women tend to get scorned and they want revenge. I can see how it happens. And Fox News catches on to this as they came out last night with a news clip about how P. Diddy is most likely going to get away with this. But still, the abuse of sex ed by psychologists through the public school systems to fool people, especially Christians, who were already sabotaging their members for this by psychologists, is just crushing America. The Me Too movement that came out, I mean, dear God, that shows you how abusive psychologists have been in helping evangelicalism and the Church of Jesus Christ. It was just a crushing blow that exposed this whole fraud, and nobody made the connection to who was responsible. And so it still continues. The church still is helping set up new treatment centers. The church is spending more time focusing on children, ignoring the adults, and even starting to back off on the young adults. And that's what I noticed, and I mentioned in the earlier video, is that previous years the church has had a setup of a prophet doing a devotional for young adults or for youth month after month after month. This year, I checked last night and wondered, why is nothing being advertised for a coming devotional? You know, we had the Relief Society president do the one for May rather than an apostle. And so I checked, and now there's the anniversary, 150th anniversary of the Young Men's Organization. Anderson will be doing that. But it's not until September when Kieran will be talking to children, not the youth, children, primary children. I guess youth, but and then you have they've scheduled Holland. Apparently, they believe Holland will continue to live until November. When Holland is scheduled to do another one for youth. Young adults are being skipped this year for the rest of the year. For January, February, March, yes. And then May was the Relief Society president. But otherwise, the rest of the year, nothing. They are not scheduling anything. And so in context with Nelson coming out after all these latter days, saying in the coming days, in the coming day, in the coming days, in the coming day, Oaks adding for the Christmas message last year, every day we're one day closer to the second coming of Jesus. And Mormons are going gaga for Jesus. We're going to prove to the world we're true. No, show Travis. Jesus is going to murder you, Travis. How are you going to feel when you stand in front of him and be judged? You've never read Section 76, have you? It's about Zion. And so Nelson gets up at April conference and says, no man knows the day or the hour. Mormons had spread it all over the internet because they weren't listening to me. As that's when Sister Jessica got leaked. that 2020 was a test run for 2024 and 2025 for the second coming of Jesus. And in connection with Nelson and Oaks in the end of 2024, saying that Jesus is coming, everybody was starting to put it all together. And yet, Nelson came out, April conference, no man knows the day or the hour. As there are no scheduled prophets for devotionals this year after April conference. This tells me that I'm right. That Nelson expected Trump to come into office and boom, blow up America instantly. And he failed. If you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself, Nelson. This is the error that enemies, criminals, terrorists make in their plot. This has been going on for 200 years. They've been getting everybody into position, everything set up, and then for 2020, when it was supposed to be the big show, they said, nope, we're going to do a test run. I don't find out until last year, at the end of last year, when everybody was all excited about Jesus coming, and Mormons are clueless that it's Trump. And so I do the videos. It's Trump. No. The church has to force their interpretation. And so that's why they can't come out and say that Trump is Jesus. They're saying that the glory of Jesus is going to burn everybody. And then you'll know it's Jesus. Because you're dead. You need to oil the chair today, it looks like. This is what they're hesitating and waiting for. Trump is failing. He's taking his time. He is not going all in. He has not triggered people to a civil war yet. He has not triggered people to the point where Trump says, enough, I'm sending in the military in America. I am establishing martial law. I am invoking the Insurrection Act. I am adding to the Alien Invasion Act that he already has in place. This is why MAGA states are confused by Trump as to what he means. Cox, we're MAGA, but we're a sanctuary state because of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so this is why the church is able to defy Trump in a first presidency message. We're going to support terrorism. Trump isn't going to stop us. We're exempt. And yet Governor Cox, when the one Mormon at BYU has his visa revoked, that Cox says, we need clarification on what Trump means. What do you mean you need clarification? He made it very clear in all of the rallies in Project 2025, in his inaugural speech, and in his actions. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's starting with the hardcore criminals first, and then he throws in some casualties, but it's all of you have to go. You are not an American citizen, according to Trump's interpretation. This is what Cox is playing dumb about. All of you have to go. There are over 600 on Trump's get out list in Utah alone. That's missionaries who come from outside the United States You're not allowed here. Those who come to the BYUs, you're not allowed to come here. He's escalating Harvard because he's getting away with Harvard. He's still deporting people, even though he has to do it in secret now. He's backing off on tariffs for the EU until July 1st, which the EU has something scheduled for July 1st. I thought that was curious. But the economy is still in ruins and getting worse week after week after week. And so things are happening, but they're not to the point where the deep state Dems finally grow a spine. And if they won't, Trump will just continue to slowly destroy America little by little until America just surrenders to Trump. And then the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints won't ever get their kingdom back. The church getting their kingdom is dependent upon Trump destroying the federal government and then being assassinated. They won't get it otherwise. The whole plot is conditioned on this, to trigger a response against Trump, to war in America. MAGA wants war. They want bloodshed. That's what they're doing. They're violent, they are aggressive, they are mean and cruel and inhumane on purpose. They want war, and the Dems won't fight back. They cave. They get beaten up, lying dead, getting locked up, and won't fight back. And so the church won't get their kingdom back. This is one of the failures that the church did not count on with psychologists. And the divide and conquer through psychology is that Americans are just too apathetic. Deep state Dems are too apathetic. They just let things burn down around them and die in the flames. Mormons are this way for the church. They know the church isn't true. They just sit and watch my videos and don't put a thumbs up or a thumbs down, for the most part. The most of them are at the church office building in the Strengthening Church Members Committee, who are supposed to return and report this video to Nelson. And so they don't dare make a comment about how wrong I am. Church is true. I need to repent, or Jesus is going to murder me, because then I'll be banning them from viewing my channel, and they won't be able to do their job in the Strengthening Church Members Committee to return and report to Nelson. But yes, this is not a time when you can just sit back and be a couch potato Mormon anymore. These are the latter days, and they're over with. We are waiting for Trump to cause the big boom. Either a civil war or Trump sending in the military, unleashing the nukes on America to destroy America, to start a civil war, which will start a world war. Putin is putting everything into position. China is putting everything into position. Kim Jong-un is putting everything into position. Mohammed bin Salman is putting everything into position. Trump's tour to the Middle East, that was all about helping them fund their upcoming wars. They all have their individual wars that they want to accomplish. And this is where the church is able to distance themselves and yet still be the puppet masters for all the leaders around the world. But as we see with Trump, it's not a direct order. The church isn't holding on to the puppet strings. There are other people who are in charge of holding the puppet strings and making the nations work. And the more distance away from the church, the more difficult it is for the church to succeed with carrying out their interpretation of reinterpreting Joseph Smith. And this is the danger that I see, as this is now going to be a torture summer as a result. And it's frustrating because the latter days are over with. Signs in the heavens are done. And because the enemy is making all of this happen, and Trump is failing and delaying, life goes on. As more and more people suffer, more and more people die unnecessarily. I am not able to get you to Zion with the final four. The church must fall. The church must transfer everything to me. All Mormons around the whole world must know that I've been the one that this was transferred to. If these cannot happen, I cannot take you in an exodus to Zion. This prophecy of Joseph Smith's will not be fulfilled. And instead, his warning, and the Book of Mormon's warning, of utter destruction is the more plausible outcome. You get to choose. And you've chosen wrong. And so, yes, I have no clue how the church is going to publicly transfer everything to me. I'm not supposed to sue this year. I did it when I was supposed to do it in 2020. They turned it into a test run. And so, yeah, I've tried to tell Trump, and he won't listen because he thinks he's protected. They didn't let him get locked up in prison as Lucifer for the 1,000 years because it was a test run. That's why he didn't go to prison. They needed him for now. And so here we go. And so, yes, he's backing off on some things, but going forward on others. And other stuff, he's still doing it in secret. And so, yes, he's causing confusion. He's got tons of stuff being thrown at the press who can't cover it all. And we're supposed to choose which ones will we not allow him to do. And so he has to back off on those. And others he pushes because we have to sacrifice. Because, what do we do? Remove Trump from the equation? Problem solved. And they won't do it. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. The psychologist failed in the brainwashing. They're supposed to get triggered. Like the Black Lives Matter protest? Yeah, that was all triggered, planned. Oak said so. We're running a test. Black Lives Matter was supposed to happen. When Trump was protesting, or when people were protesting and Trump sent in the unmarked black vehicles, pulling people off of the protests, taking them to black sites. Yeah, it was all a test. That's what's coming for this time. Once Trump says enough and sends in the military, establishes martial law, and just goes berserk on everybody betraying him. And he is not doing it to MAGA states. Utah is considered a MAGA state, even though they're a sanctuary state. This is why Utah is getting away with it. But Joseph Smith says, no, Trump is coming into Utah and is destroying it. And thus the church will fall in that way. That it will backfire on them. But Trump isn't listening to me. It can't happen unless Trump listens to me. He's in danger and he won't listen. He has gotten power hungry and therefore doesn't believe he's going to be hurt. And so yes, he comes out and says, if Iran nukes me, we need to completely destroy them. It's not Iran. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then Comey says it's time to 86 you, Trump. With his footprints in the sand. And Trump attacks Comey, who put you in office in 2016. And that's how you thank him? But it's the church. The church is getting away with it. It's pissing me off. And yet, Nelson was expecting the whole thing to be over with before April conference. And so they've got nothing planned for the rest of the year. And so, yes, if Trump continues to fail and drag it out, they'll have their anniversary in July. They'll have conference in October. They'll have the Christmas message in December. They'll go on to next year, next year, and next year, and next year, continually adding more land to their possessions, continuing to increase new converts who are suckers and losers to pay the church money. They'll continue to steal from the stock market. They'll just do the status quo until Trump finally does it, what he was put in to do. And so yes, this is why if Trump purposely delays and fails until the next presidential election, sure, he will be the third term president. We all know it's going to happen if it happens, but it's not supposed to get to that point. Trump is supposed to destroy America now. He's late. He failed. So this is where we're at. And it sucks because the Jewish Christ is here. He's ready to go. He's getting older. Your lives are in danger right now. This is where Pharaoh is upset with Moses, and so he increases the burden upon the house of Israel. This is that situation. And so, yeah, prophecy fulfilled, and so I'm hoping, dear God, because the curse of Joseph Smith hasn't even happened yet. That's also disturbing. Because this is the last day for the curse of Joseph Smith. I technically can't go beyond, even though Pentecost for the Jews, not the Christians, is June 1st. And so that officially, even though I don't approve of it, would be the last day for the curse of Joseph Smith. But it's in the context of Pentecost is when we're in Zion, safe, gathered from all over the world to Zion. And it's obviously not going to happen. It's too soon. There'll be bugs. And so, as the signs in the heavens for June, the final day for the signs in the heavens are the 24th of June. That's when the sun unites with Jupiter, and that's officially it. Millennium gets underway from that point on, as it was supposed to be in 2021. So that now, after all these years, Mormons see, wow, Travis, he saved us. America and the world is destroyed. And I guess, I guess he's Jesus? Are you reincarnated as Jesus? No! No! Get out! Get out! So yeah, this is deeply concerning for me, as I've got the mega desk set up now. I saw that on Office. He stole it from me. And so yeah, this is uncharted territory, because when you put a bull in a china shop, you know the china shop's going to be destroyed, but it's up to the bull as to when he goes wild in the china shop. He's causing damage here and there, but he's just sauntering around, knocking over a table of china here, knocking over a table of china there. Taking his time. But yeah, after the 24th this month, June, that's it. There's 2045, where there's a solar eclipse over the United States of America that passes directly over Salt Lake City. Dear God, no. That's too far away. Too far away from all Jewish prophecy that has all happened. So, heads up. We're all doomed. So let me get this other stuff in, and then I'll not do all these little videos that I had planned. Mormons, Force and Religion, covered that. My great classics. I saw that it became popular, so I did more of them. But the consequences were that people only came to them, and not all of them, just ones that they chose to click on, as apparently the latest ones YouTube was able to shut down. So they put a stop to my getting views for Great Classics videos. But it was not transferring to people to watch my other videos. The other videos were still at their low numbers. And so the Great Classics were a failed attempt to try to get more attention to Mormons to pay attention to these other more important videos for you. I've been doing these Great Classics every single conference. I've been doing them throughout the years, putting in the clips. And Mormons it's not clicking. They just don't care. They don't care that they're the false church. They don't care to study their scriptures, to run the test. They don't care that they're being robbed by this church. They don't care that they're prostituting their wives. They don't care that they're being sexually abused. Mormons just don't care. The apathy is just sickening among Mormons. And so there's really no reason to continue on with the Great Classics collection, because it's just not working to get you to know the danger you're in. I'm not doing this to be popular. I'm doing this to try to save your lives. And if I'm only getting popular and nobody is wanting to save your life, it's not good enough. I quit. And so, yes, it was even sad to see that Mormons on these solo clips of the living prophets of Jesus, and Mormons are like thinking that they're fake news. They didn't say that. You're taking them out of context. No, it's their words from conference. I'm not putting in my commentary, other than the title. They said it. And it's as if Mormons have never listened to them before. And they probably haven't. They're on vacation, smearing poop on the Capitol walls. Only hear through social media that Nelson said that Jesus is coming. And so Mormons just are the most stubborn. You try to corral them into the fenced off area and they just won't budge. No, I am staying here with my friend who is a wolf. He appreciates me for who I am. So I give him of my substance. But yeah, the great classics, 4 out of the 5 were the top 5. And then one of them ended up being number 10 out of the top 10. And so yeah, they were doing well, but overall Mormons don't care. They're not wanting to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And so yeah, it's very weird what's going on. Very weird. So yeah, I'm transitioning, as you can see. I have a box that will need to go underneath this box. And then there's some other smaller boxes that will need to be stacked up over there too. And then, that's all set up. So I got to figure out a way to put my props in new positions for you. Because apparently, who knows how long it's going to be until Trump finally destroys America. Destroys the federal government, as 3 Nephi chapter 7 says, and has every state in the Union independently running their own state, according to the MAGA principles. And Trump thinks that he's going to be the King of Kings, Lord of Lords over the whole United States of MAGA. And it's just, he's taking his time. And it's frustrating and pissing me off. What will be the trigger that Americans say, nope, no more? So, because I've given up on the granola bars that was the symbol for traveling to Zion. I can't count on Trump to do it. No more granola bars. But it's too expensive to buy breakfast anymore. So I no longer have breakfast. So that's also disturbing. And so yes, like I said, we're being tortured now. Because America won't stand up for themselves. And so yes, the deep state Dems, rather than seeking ways to stop Trump, they're talking about, is it Buttigieg or is it AOC who's going to be the next president in 2028? They're not living in reality for right now. They're looking to the future, unaware and leading their followers astray in the false hope of a future that we've already seen time and time again they failed. It was under Biden that we lost the rights to women. We lost rights to others. The Respect for Marriage Act was under Biden, which became the Disrespect for Marriage Act. People are not seeing it. Under Biden, Putin declared war on Ukraine. Under Biden, Islam declared war on Israel. Democrats fail time and time again. And yet still, Democrats are saying, oh, yeah, we need to get out and vote for AOC in 2028. You're not going to survive. There's no way you can survive. If I can't have breakfast anymore, if I can't purchase regular DVDs on a normal monthly basis anymore, I'm sure you guys are suffering too in your own special way. We are not seeing the end of all of this. There's just no way. And so this can't be a second test run. Did Oaks get leaked to the mission presidents who refused to leak it to a sister missionary? Is this a second test run? Maybe that should be the title instead of Wedding Day Canceled. You won't understand what it means. Second test run canceled. Or second test run for 2024 and 2025. Dear God, I don't get it. This is the stupidest enemy I've ever known. The biggest failure I've ever known. They've been plotting this for 200 years and they can't finish. So, there you have it. There you have it. Enjoy your day in hell. But if you notice the thumbnail picture on the previous video, I had these ideas last night as I was going to bed and yesterday as I was writing them down. And so that's why I was planning on doing a whole bunch of shorter videos for today. And then when I got up, turned the computer on after I went for my run, and went and checked with my Urim and Thummim the signs in the heavens. I went, oh, right. Yeah. And so thus, I'm giving you a message of warning. Wearing the white shirt, that's just a coincidence because of the way I do my laundry. It just all timed perfectly. But I didn't find out about it until after I found out the information. So, prophecy again fulfilled for you, for those who believe and are listening and enduring to the end of my videos.